Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Neil Haley Show. And I'm really excited about my guest today, author Adrian Hurtado. Adrian, thanks for stopping by. Children's books, but you've written a lot of books, so we're going to go dive deep into your career and why you became a writer. Tell me why you became a writer, first of all.
I always enjoyed writing. As a child, I used to do a lot of writing, and I actually won writing contests in elementary school, junior high, and high school. And as I got older, I became an educator, and I enjoyed entering my kids into writing contests and doing things like that. And it wasn't until after I retired that I really started getting into writing more and getting my books published.
Oh, that's absolutely cool. So once you decide, when did you say that it's time for me to do this?
It was at least 20 years ago because I've been retired for some time now.
Oh, wow. But you found it. So this has kept you going.
Yes.
So look, as young as you look, Adrian, and everything, have been retired for 20 years.
Yeah, I'm 78, so.
You do not look 78 at all.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Yeah. So basically retired, then writing. What were the biggest challenges, first of all, saying, okay, I'm going to become a writer now?
Getting published is really hard. Wanting to write, as I said, I always enjoyed writing. When I finally decided to sit down and start doing it, I thought I've got to have ideas come into my head as to what I want to write. So I started off with a couple of children's books, and then later on I got into other areas.
I got it. Okay. And why children's books?
Having been an educator, I thought I always enjoyed reading to my class and having my class read with me. I taught elementary school.
Okay, what grade did you teach in elementary?
Most of the time I taught fifth grade. I did teach younger grades for a couple of years, but most of my career I taught fifth grade. And then when I became a principal, I was a middle school principal.
So yeah, I don't know if you know my background, Adrian. I'm a former teacher, and I taught X amount of years. And I also owned a tutoring business, which I'm relaunching again. So it's interesting you talk about the education. We have a lot in common than that. So you were a principal too. Interesting.
Yes.
So basically during that time, there's no way you're writing books when you're a principal.
I was too busy. I was too busy.
But
I will tell you though, I did write one of my books while I was a fifth grade teacher, but it sat on my computer for years until after I retired. And when we get into the story.
Yeah, we're going to get to that. I'm just interested in the whole fifth grade teacher, because I was certified elementary ed. So I taught fourth and fifth grade. Fifth grade's a great grade. Fourth grades, they're just too babyish I call it the kindergarten of the middle grades is fourth grade. Fifth grade, they really have everything. It's a year that you can it's a great year with those kids.
It is. I enjoyed it.
Did you teach all subjects in fifth grade?
I did.
Oh, wow. What was your favorite subject to teach?
Actually, two, writing and history. Those two are at the top.
I enjoyed teaching social studies. It was really fun, but you could dive into them. Science was interesting as long as you had the right kits involved. It's just amazing what we had to know, right?
Yes.
We would go from, okay, we're teaching English. Now we're going to go on to science.
Yes.
Now it's time for social studies. And then maybe we end up having a music class as well.
That's why they're called multi-subject credentials.
And you taught in California?
I did.
Okay. All right. So what inspired you to reimagine or create Mary Had a Little Lamb? And how does your version differ from the traditional story?
Okay, that's the story that I wanted to tell you about. That's the one that I actually wrote first, but sat on my computer for years. As a fifth grade teacher, back in the 80s, around Christmas time, back in those days, we could still put Christmas items up in the classroom. We could still say Merry Christmas. I went there. There weren't all the roadblocks that there are today. And I had all this stuff up on the wall there. And I asked my students one day, whose birthday do we celebrate at Christmas? And quite a few of them said Santa Claus. And that surprised the heck out of me. And so I went home that night and I actually sat down and I hand wrote this poem called Mary Had a Little Lamb. And I came in the next day and I read it to my kids and I explained to them whose birthday we really celebrate at Christmas time. When I eventually got a computer, I still had that in a folder and I typed it into my computer and it sat there for years. And as I said, I didn't publish it until after I retired, but it was not the first book that I published. It was the third book. I actually published the two children's books before this one.
Wow. Okay. And let's talk about that story, Mary Had a Little Lamb. And how's it different? So you said it sat on your shelf. It sat on your shelf because you were like, I don't have time yet. Got to do it. But this is the one that's coming, the latest is coming out of your books.
Yes. And what I did, I took the story of Jesus from his birth to his ascension. And I made it into a poem. I used scripture to do it. So I've used all the 4 gospels in putting the book together, because they don't all tell the same thing. They have a lot of things that are the same, but there are things that are different. So I wanted to make sure I got all parts of his life into the poem. And then I put it in that way. And it's the whole story. It's really the gospel in a poetic form. And it's easy for children to understand, easy for parents to read, even easy for children to read.
No doubt. And interesting. And so tell us the differences of Mary Had a Little Lamb to your Mary Had a Little Lamb.
As I said, I took parts from all 4 gospels.
Yeah. So you're definitely talking about Mary compared to the other Mary.
I'm talking about Mary, Jesus' mother.
Yeah.
Yes. And that's who the Mary is. And her lamb, of course, is Jesus, the Lamb of God.
Interesting. And what was your goal of writing this children's book?
I'm trying to get the point across that Christmas is not about Santa Claus or a guy in a red suit or a sleigh flying through the air one night a year, that it's about a person who really did live on the earth and who came and did something worthwhile.
Interesting. And what audience do you want the children's book to be for? What age?
It can be all ages. In fact, some of the people at my church to whom I've given the book tell me that it's become their annual Christmas reading with their family. And so that really makes me feel good to hear that. And that the audience can be all levels. As I said, parents can read it to their children, can read it for themselves. Anyone can sit down and read it and get the actual story.
So there's a lot of work in a short children's book to add the gospels, to add specific nuances to the book.
Yes, very much. And it's all done in about, if I remember correctly, it's about 32 stanzas.
Oh, wow. But it took you some time.
It did.
Let's see the cover. Show us the cover. You have the whole all up to your face so we can see the whole thing. Oh, it's so nice. Very good. Who illustrated that?
Oh, I'm glad you asked me that, because I was going to bring her up. My illustrator is named Janie Kuntz. She's illustrated 4 of my 7 books. And I live in, as I said to you earlier, Cayucas, California, which is 20 miles north of San Luis Obispo. It's right on the coast. And 15 miles north of me is the town of Cambria, California. And that's where Janie lives. And it's really funny because I mentioned that this wasn't the first book that I published. The first book that I published, which maybe we'll get a chance to talk about later, is called...
We have all of them, so we're good. Okay. We're going to talk about all of them.
It's called Acrobat. And what I did was I advertised for someone who could meet with me to see about drawing a picture of a bat. And I sat down with 3 different people at 3 different times and told them what I wanted. And Janie was the only one that called me back and said, I have an illustration for you. And I met with her, and it was exactly what I had said I wanted. And so I began meeting with her, going through the story, telling her what I envisioned, and she would sketch it while we were talking. And then she says, okay, I'll get back with you in a couple of days after I have the illustration done. And it was almost perfect every single time to what I had wanted. And she even added a few nuances that made it stand out even more.
Yeah, that's the cool thing, what she was able to do in all those areas.
And that's why she's in 4 of my books.
Oh, wow. Okay. So let's talk about another book you wrote. In Toad's Tool, what message or lesson do you hope young readers take away from Toad's journey and experiences?
Okay. Toad inherited a tool bag from his father, who is out of the picture now. And his father always ran around the forest helping other animals get things done with his tool bag. And he always told Toad that nothing feels as good as helping others. So now that Toad's father is gone and he's got his tool bag, he's decided to carry on that tradition using that same mantra of nothing feels as good as helping others. And in the story, he goes through the forest helping different animals with things that they need repaired or help with getting something completed. And so he's just picking up where his father left off.
See, interesting. And what inspired you about the Toad?
Actually, my dad.
So that's a great one to write about.
Yeah,
to give to the legacy of your father. Yeah,
my dad has long passed away, but my dad was an extreme handyman, unlike myself.
You're not. So you'd think an educator like yourself, not a handyman.
I can do some things, but don't trust me with everything. But my dad was the kind of person that he could just do it all. He'd pick up his tools and he'd go out and he'd always help people. He was always very helpful to others in the neighborhood. And I picked that up from him, that I wanted to be that kind of person where I could be helpful to others in my neighborhood or my area.
Okay. And so basically the Toad is your dad. That's pretty cool.
Yes.
And what does your family think of that might be living relatives of your father or people that are around your father at one point in time?
Both my parents are gone. I only have three sisters remaining. I only have three sisters, but they know that it was about my dad. In fact, the book was dedicated to my dad in the front, and to both my mother and my father. It says, in memory of my late parents, Francis and Adriano. My dad's name was Adriano, is the way it was pronounced. And I dedicated it to them because of the memories I have.
Fabulous. And that book came out how long ago, Toadstool?
Oh, maybe 12 to 15 years ago. I self-published it.
Are you republishing it again?
Yes, I am. I'm working with a company now, Author Cabin, the company that helped me set this
interview
up with you. And prior to that, I was just working on my own, doing self-publishing for many years. And I finally found a company that I thought I could trust and work with to help me get my books out there.
I'm glad. And it's exciting for you. I'm excited for you as being a former educator myself, just these stories. And I could see if I was writing a book for my father, how important it would be, my late father, how important it would be to get it out there and to republish it again. Because when we do our things the first time, we don't do it always right. You get the right team together and big things happen. Okay. Let's talk about Acrobat. Acrobat.
Would you like to see the cover of Toadstool?
Yeah. Oh, you have it? Okay. Show us. Great. All right. I love it. I love the tool belt and everything. I could just see, as a former elementary teacher, me reading to the kids and pointing out all the different things to really teach them the handyman. Do you want to start doing those elementary schools and start reading to the schools?
I have done in the past. I have gone to several elementary schools and read my books and then presented it to the teacher as a gift.
Are you looking to do that again with all of them?
Hopefully someday. Right now, I'm just trying to, as I said, I'm working with Author Cabin, hoping to get a traditional publisher and maybe get some other things going with the books.
All right, awesome. All right, so Acrobat has a unique and playful concept. What sparked the idea for this story, and how did you develop its main character?
Acrobat, actually, to a certain degree, is me. He wants to participate in what are called the Owl Olympics, named after Wise Owl, who put these games together based on the Olympics that we're familiar with.
Yeah.
But because bats are nocturnal, he has to come up with a way to be able to come out into the sunshine, to be able to do the thing that he wants to do in the games. One of the things that I remember about my dad was my dad would always tell me, always do your best. He says, it may not be somebody else's best, but it's your best. And that's been something that I've lived with all my life. I always attempt to do my best at everything that I can do. And basically, that's what Acro is doing here in this story. He wants to participate. He's doing his best to be able to come up with a plan in order to do. And when he finally comes up with the plan, he does his best participating in the Olympics.
That's cool. That's really cool. So those Olympics, Owl Olympics, right? You said
Owl Olympics, named after Wise Owl.
So what kind of participation? Tell me some of the events in Owl Olympics.
The one that he takes part in, Acrobat, is the parallel bars.
Okay.
He likes to twirl and spin and flip and do stuff in the air. He always practiced in the cave. His dad had put up a bar for him because he liked doing that.
Are you a gymnast?
Not at all. I am athletic. I've always been athletic. I'm not a gymnast, but I played baseball in school. I've always been very athletic. I was a tennis player for many years. In fact, I wrote a book called The Tennis Jock, based on my years that I thought I was as good as I wasn't. But I've always been very athletic, and I love getting out and doing things. And Acrobat, to a certain degree, is me.
Okay. I think that's cool. And did they talk about other games in the Olympics?
Not so much, because he's focused on the one that he wants to participate in.
I got it.
He
had to work hard.
Yes.
That's probably one of the things to do that. Do you have a cover for that one to see it, for us to see?
There it is.
All right. Acrobat. I love it. And
that's another one that Janie did for me also.
What?
That's another one that Janie illustrated for me as well.
Oh, wow. Okay. So basically, you're getting these all out there. Across your three books, there seems to be a strong sense of creativity and imagination. You definitely have imagination. How do you approach building engaging worlds for children?
I sit down and I stop and think, if I were still a child, what would I like? And I put it in those terms. Okay, I would enjoy a story about this or a story about that. And then I try to formulate it as I go along. Usually when I sit down and start writing, I can do something very quickly. That isn't necessarily my finished product. I'll come back to it later and I'll look at it and I'll make some changes. But I try to write down what's in my head right away. so that I've got that idea going for me at least.
Exactly. And that's the process. And how many of your characters remind you of somebody you've taught or have run into in your life?
All of my characters. As I said, I have set, by the way, Acrobat and Toadstools are also available in Spanish.
That's great.
Yeah, they've been translated into Spanish. But in every one of my books, to a certain degree, they all point back to me, with the exception of Mary Had a Little Lamb. It points to my faith, but it doesn't point to me in the story. It points, as I said, to Jesus.
Interesting. And that book's going to be interesting for your market compared to the other books.
Yes.
Okay. But that one is out. That's the new one that's out. When do you expect the other two to be republished again?
All of my books are available on Amazon. In fact, I have a website, if I could hold this up.
Yeah.
amhurtadobooks.com.
Yeah.
And if you go to that website and then click on the Amazon icon or trailer or whatever it is that they have there, and it'll take you to my books, and you'll see all of my books there.
I think it's awesome for sure. When writing for young audiences, what challenges do you face, and how do you ensure your stories remain both entertaining and meaningful?
The challenge I face is, how do I see it? What's my perspective? And how is it going to make me feel when I write it? All my books are positive. I want my books all to be positive. I don't want them to make anybody feel down. So I try to be uplifting with my books. I try to get a feeling out of it that when I'm done, I feel good about what I wrote and what I read when I sit down. I don't want to sit there and think, oh, this book really brings me down, and it's something that I wish I hadn't written. So I try to be as positive as possible with all of my books.
I think that's really cool. Be positive with your books and to really bring that. And you remember when you read to your class in 5th grade, after recess probably, right? That's when we always read to them. What is going to keep them engaged throughout the story? And then for the little ones as well, being an elementary certified teacher, I'm sure you've worked with more than just 5th graders.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And in fact, my first couple of years, I was a 1st and 2nd grade combination teacher. And then I had the opportunity to move up to the upper grades, and I did.
And then you went to the principalship and said, okay. So you always were observing kindergarten classrooms and 1st grade classrooms as a principal.
Yes. Not as a principal, because I was a principal at middle school level.
Oh.
6, 7, 8.
Okay. So you never got that opportunity, but you got the opportunities to teach in those grades. What made you want to be a middle school principal? It just happened that way.
It just happened that way. I actually got a call from somebody in a school district I had never heard of, that somebody in my district recommended me to them as a possible candidate for an assistant principal position. So I went and I interviewed. It was middle school, and I thought, they're not going to pick me because I'm elementary and I had no middle school experience. Well, the next thing I know, they called me up and offered me the job. 2 years later, the principal that I was working with moved to Ohio. And so I interviewed for the job, and I wound up being the principal there, and that's where I retired.
Wow. And all ages, it seems like you've worked with.
Except high school.
Never got to sub in high school or anything?
I only worked with youth groups at the church that were high school level, but that's it.
Yeah, for sure. But you have a wide variety of knowledge to bring. And I love the fact that you've translated these books into not just to have them in English, but in Spanish. Yes, what an opportunity, because
I actually, go ahead. I'm sorry.
What an opportunity, because a lot of children's books are not in Spanish, especially in the United States.
Right. And I actually translated them myself because I am of Hispanic background. I was a bilingual teacher my years in education. But to be on the safe side, I have a friend that is a Spanish teacher at a local junior college. And I gave the stories to him, and I said, please go over my stuff. I said, and try to make it more colloquial, because sometimes I get too formal. And I want to make sure that it's at a level that children will be able to understand and read. And he did that for me. So we collaborated.
So what would your titles be in Spanish?
It's Acrobat. So murciélago means the bat. And then, I didn't bring it up over here. Los herramientas the tools of Toad.
Okay. Interesting. And so that excites you. So you have a different markets to come out with the book. I think it's great. Yeah. The Spanish market. And do you want to break into not just the worldwide because of Spanish as well?
I would love to.
Oh, you're going to do it. I know you are. You're motivated. Unbelievable at your age. You look like 15 years younger. So you must be enjoying your retirement.
As I said, I was always active, and I'm still very active.
Staying active, keeping busy. What are those tips for staying young, and what do you think they are?
I was in the Marines back in the 60s, and I carried that.
Thank you for your service.
Thank you. Yeah, did a tour in Vietnam. But I still exercise every morning, a minimum of 45 minutes every morning I exercise. And then I walk in the afternoons. I usually go for at least a mile walk. My dog makes sure of that. But we walk for at least a mile every afternoon. And I try to put in at least 10,000 steps daily. I usually put a lot more than that, but that's my goal every day, is to walk 10,000 steps.
Wow. And how do you keep your mind? I guess writing is the big thing that keeps your mind. So
Writing. Plus, I stay very active in the community. I'm president of the Cayuga Seniors, have been for many years. I used to be president of the Morro Bay Retired Active Men's Club. It disbanded after COVID-19, unfortunately. I'm very active in my church. I do a lot of things in the community to keep me going. And that sometimes, because of things I do in the community, it gives me ideas of something to write.
Okay, great. Your website again, hold it up for everybody, Adrian.
It's AM.
All right. Thanks again, Adrian. It was a great conversation. So that's the background. I taught elementary ed, but I also was a special education teacher in high school. I taught middle school. So I went all over the board before I went into retired and became first worked on. I'm not retired, just decided to leave the teaching profession to do publicity and multiple entrepreneur ventures. But education's coming back to me with launching Total Tutor. Again, I really think education needs us more than ever. I think with this evolution of AI, every teacher needs to really understand how to make our students think differently. We really got to look at Bloom's taxonomies more than ever. And if we're not doing that, but we want to take technology out of it, that's a mistake. And I'm seeing it sometimes where they're trying to keep technology out of the classroom when it's got to be in.
Yes. Can I briefly show you my other books?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Definitely show us those other books.
They're in order. They're all poems.
Okay.
I was initially going to publish them as the poetic stages of my life, but my rep at Author Cabin and other people there suggested I do them separately. As I mentioned before, I try to base things on my life. And so this one, The Patrol, when I was in Vietnam, we always heard stories about things that were either true or not true. We don't know. But we always heard stories about a patrol that went out and never came back. So I wrote this poem about it. And it can be any patrol, any war, any time, any place.
Oh, wow.
Vietnam. But I wrote this based on my experiences. Then when I got home, I mentioned that I got into tennis, never took lessons, just enjoyed playing the game, went to the court, challenged people, right, as good as I wanted to. So I wrote this book called The Tennis Jock. And it's about my exploits in my years of playing tennis and some of the things that I did. There's one in here where he hits himself in the head with the tennis racket. I never did that, but I came close and trying to protect myself from the ball coming back at me.
Okay.
This one, The Dawn. As I got older, I began to realize that waking up every morning to a new dawn was a privilege and a pleasure and a blessing. And so I wrote this poem about what I see every morning in the dawn.
Okay.
My last book, this one is called Inside Me. This is a synopsis of my life. Again, it's a poem, but it's a synopsis of my life. For every bad thing in here in my life, it's counteracted with a good thing.
Okay. I love it. All those things are available at your website. I appreciate it, Adrian. It's a great conversation, and thanks for stopping by.
Neil, thank you so much. I appreciate this opportunity.
You're listening and watching The Neil Haley Show, and we'll be back.